keyboard to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner Yougov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. Yougov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with Yougov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show / weekly news live stream. I'm Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts Jimmy Barada, Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you guys who are new here, welcome. What we do here is we cover everything that didn't make it into the podcast, which these days is almost all the news. So we do the news every single week, but best of all, we do it live with you guys. We dissect, we analyze everything. We look at the business implications of all the news happening in the industry. But like I said, we get to do it live with you guys. So if you're lurking, if it's your first time here, welcome. We encourage you to participate. If you're not comfortable, that's okay too. But bring your friends, bring your colleagues. We have so much fun doing this with all of you. Wade, welcome. He says, hi, everyone. What's the good word in esports this week? Wade, we're going to get to the good word in esports this week. Lots of interesting things to talk about. How are you guys doing? Jimmy, Jeff?
Jeff, you go first.
I'm doing great. I sent a message to Jimmy earlier today. Wednesday's the best day of the week. We all get to hang out. I get to see Jimmy's bulldog in the background sometimes. That always makes the show. I see him now. That's exciting. I'm wondering where Lindsay is too. Is Lindsay ever coming back? I see her Instagram. You know, she's somewhere across the world enjoying herself. I mean, come back, Lindsay, if you're listening.
William, she's listening. I hope she misses us when she's not here.
He's probably just late.
Lindsay, this is her second week away. She's away for 3 weeks, I believe. So we may not see Lindsay next week, but she is going to be back, thankfully. She is
the third week.
Is it the third week?
Like
I've lost track.
Yeah,
I've lost the track of the weeks. I mean, let's face it. This is all we need here, right here, though, right? I mean, we don't need anyone else. Even though we love everybody. Robert says a busy weekend for the LCS weekend, right? It's a busy week for esports business news in general. Taylor says hello. Taylor, hey.
Taylor.
We were just with Taylor in Las Vegas, actually. So, and as you guys may have noticed, we're not doing this podcast from our hotel room in Las Vegas, which is nice, or this live stream. So we're back to sounding decent and looking decent. I mean, other than Jeff, who we can't convince to use real equipment. But you know,
did anyone have any big jackpots? Any big wins in Vegas? Notable?
Yeah, there were a few going on actually. Jillian on our team had a mini jackpot. I think she almost quadrupled her money, which was pretty cool. But it was on a slot machine out of all things. Like, it wasn't strategic betting and playing odds. And
Jillian is about 40 years too young to be playing a slot machine. She should know that. You should, as her boss, Paul, and as her friend, you guys should tell her that.
should have not allowed it.
It was fun though. Like, it was one of those things where, like, you don't know what's happening. These machines are just lights and sounds, and we're sitting there for 5 minutes as it just keeps counting higher and higher. Like pennies, but still, like, until like It was
awesome.
really fun, actually.
Yeah, this is why Jimmy M didn't want to be on the show tonight. No, I'm just kidding. He's not feeling well, but he also lost all his money. So Jillian beat just about everybody. I think the only person who walked away with more money than Jillian was me, but I had an unfair advantage. I stayed a few days longer.
You also started with
you may
more
have started
money,
with
so
two
advantages.
but I did okay.
In my experience, staying longer does not help the amount of money.
No, it doesn't.
In fact, those are literally inversely correlated.
But speaking of Taylor, we were at his very cool Razer store in Las Vegas, which I highly recommend everyone to go check out. It's a brand new store. It's absolutely spectacular. And it's very, very cool. So a little bit of gaming, nerding out on the Las Vegas Strip, other than the HyperX Esports arena.
I believe only 5 Razer stores in the world also. So if you're local to one, really, really, like Paul said, we recommend checking it out.
Brandon says, hello, Brandon. Hello.
Brandon, what's up? Brandon is EEG's newest, one of newest employees. He's our head of PR and social media.
Very cool. Well, welcome, Brandon. Robert says, what were you all doing in Vegas? I was there too last week for Cinemacon. Robert, it's so funny you mentioned that because we were there filming a bunch of content, a bunch of new stuff planned that you're going to see from Holodeck and from Business of Esports and all the kind of the stuff we're doing. So the whole team flew out to Vegas for like 3 or 4 days to do content. And we found out only at the end that there was this like huge Cinemacon conference happening. And I told Jimmy he had to park himself outside of that because I don't know how we missed that. I don't know how we didn't know that was happening at the exact same time we were there. But it did seem interesting. So I'm curious how your Cinemacon experience was, if there was anything esports or gaming related that you saw there. Taylor says, yep, 5. There you go. 5 Razer stores in the world. Chris says, how many people in the store when you got there?
I can't recall because actually we entered, I think, like a minute or two before opening. And we were there all day, Chris.
Yeah.
So we
saw
there were
coming and going.
Yeah, I can't say a lot of foot traffic on that part of the strip. A lot of people interested in gaming that were coming in, buying peripherals, kind of hanging out. Mask mandates, I'm sure, kind of changed things because Nevada is a little stricter than others. But it was a very busy store. I was super impressed, not just with the layout, but with the amount of people that came in throughout the day to make a purchase or to try out, a new mouse, keyboard, computer, etc.
It was interesting because that section though, like between the Link and the Flamingo, is a very busy stretch that I had not really spent any time around, but lots of foot traffic there. Like a great place. I think it's a great place for that Razer store. I can't think of really a better spot where I would have put it. Seems like the right spot for it. Christian says, good evening, Paul, Jimmy, and Jeff. Look forward to the business takes this week. Christian, thank you for being here.
As always.
Christopher says, what's your review of HyperX since you were in the hood?
We had the most fun day at HyperX.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's an interesting asset that I think my takeaway, and Jimmy, maybe, we made some incredible content there, guys. And I'm so excited. I want to tell you everything we're doing. I just can't yet. But we made some amazing content there. And I will say, I think what was most like the big takeaway for me was just how underutilized it is. Like, I think there's so much more they could do with that space. And I don't think Allied's doing enough with it. And it made me think, in the hands of the right owner, that there's a ton of potential there. Jimmy, I don't know if you...
Well, it's interesting, because it's definitely a COVID, the time period with COVID and the mask mandates is not, I think,
true
them in their prime. So you're kind of evaluating it based off of a limited scope, right, of when we were there. I will say that what I learned from them while we were, we always do what we do, but then we always talk on the side, is on a normal year, on a normal, no health concerns and normal foot traffic kind of year, they have at least 1,000 people in there every day at any time. And I think you might change your tune a little bit if you saw. It would more just be optimism as for our industry, I think.
Jimmy, sorry, maybe it didn't come out right, but it's like the space is like jaw dropping in terms of how spectacular it is, and it's they've taken a nightclub space and turned it into this temple to gaming. And as a PC gamer, like it gives you goosebumps how amazing the space is.
I personally would want to go over to the Razer store, buy a bunch of peripherals, right? Buy a Snecky Snack and some other cool stuff, take it to the Allied Arena, and then have my 21st birthday bash there. They have VIP rooms for gaming. There's the giant stage and the monitors. There's the cool production facility. There's a bar, 2 bars with drinks. Sorry, I cut you off, but I was hyped on it. The first thing I thought of was like, I want to have all my birthdays here. I want my bachelor party here. This is just like, it's like you said, it's a mecca for gamers.
Christopher, I will just say, the one thing that stood out for me, we tried placing esports bets at multiple Las Vegas casinos and got funny looks at everyone. So that was not a success.
Security is fast. Let me tell you guys. Lightning fast security.
Trying to film content inside casinos, not recommended.
That's how you get your kneecaps broken or something. I'm not sure
Jeff,
if esports betting is legal yet in Nevada. I know they recently.
It is. It is
very recently passed that. Is it officially like on the books already? I know they like very recently passed a bill.
Most of the big sports books don't offer it in the casino. Some have it online.
Okay.
So that was an interesting kind of,
like literally published August 20th, where it was like the control board in Nevada took steps to expand esports betting. So I think it is pretty recently. Bill 165 became effective in July, so maybe that's why. And maybe that's talking about online. It doesn't really matter, but maybe that's why it's not as prevalent yet. It's pretty
Taylor
recent.
in the chat confirmed you guys also. Yeah, it is, but not in sports books yet, if you want to throw that out.
Yeah, let me just come on in anytime. We'd love to give you a tour. Yeah, I mean, anyone listening who's in Las Vegas, hit up Taylor because that Razer store is awesome. Robert says, we had a great tour of HyperX Arena. Their new use of bleacher seating is a design I've been recommending, and it was great to see it deployed well. Yeah, the whole setup is just perfect. Like it's done so well. The stage makes you feel like being on that stage felt epic too. Taylor says it is, but not in sports books yet. Yeah, that was our experience. Mainly online for now through BetUS and such. It was interesting because I would get a smile from the person at the sportsbook counter. Like they know what I wanted, but couldn't do anything about it. So it was a very interesting experience.
You had a bet on Verstappen instead, huh?
Yeah, turned out to be a good bet. Paid off. All right, guys, let's jump into what we had here on the docket. I will just tease the podcast this week. We had 2 great guests from Krafton, the makers. For those of you who don't know, the makers of PUBG. We had Steve Blickensderfer, who is actually now a 2-time guest on the podcast. He's a lawyer at Krafton and responsible primarily for all of their privacy stuff. And we had one of his colleagues, Nate Blair, who handles all the legal matters, a lot of the legal matters for their esports stuff. So really interesting inside look at the legal landscape around stuff Krafton's doing, stuff PUBG's doing, but also some general learnings. And we talked about, I will tease a couple of the stories that we touched on. We're gonna go back to them because we didn't really dig into any of these stories in a big way. But I will say we touched on the following here. Let me bring it up so you guys can see. So we touched a little bit on this one. This one was a bit tricky because the subject matter is tricky here. Overwatch renaming McCree due to the Blizzard lawsuit. So we did talk to that. We also talked to the 3 hour a week, this new regulation in China. So if you're under 18 in China, you can't play games more than 3 hours a week now. And we also touched on, did I miss it? This one?
Because you have 80 tabs open, honestly.
We also touched on Apple changing their policy to allow developers to email customers directly about alternatives to App Store billing. So this was kind of a direct result of the Apple Epic ongoing legal saga. And so that they had, again, really interesting insight because PUBG and Krafton have dealt with all of this. They've dealt with PUBG and regulatory environments in China and India. They've dealt with, billing with PUBG Mobile. They've dealt with, cheating in PUBG Esports. And so we talked about all of the legal angles around gaming and esports, and it's a great episode. I highly recommend you guys tune in tomorrow. I will say, if you like it, if you enjoy it, let me know. We're thinking of making sort of some kind of legal episode a more recurring or common thing. In other words, maybe once a quarter, every few weeks, touch on legal matters on a separate podcast. All right, let's jump into things. Whoops. Oh, there is William.
Hey guys. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I loved the recap, though, of the podcast. Yeah, it's a great one.
Let's talk about, you guys want to talk about China? Is anyone interested in any of those three things that we covered on the podcast? Or do we want to jump into something?
I'd rather do new topics, but yeah. Jeff?
Well, I wanted to hear what their takeaway was, because this seems pretty draconian on China, but I can listen to the podcast.
That's for the podcast.
No one really wants to.
No, I think it's worth getting into. I mean, here's the question: how badly does this impact the gaming industry in China? Like, we didn't really go into the business repercussions here.
Well, my memory
if it's actually
was
enforced
up on the announcement. Like, the business implications appear to be Tencent, who I would think is the largest stakeholder to lose because they are most of games, let alone most of games in China, right? And their corporate stock was up 3% on the day. And I know this is correct. I mean, so can you fact check me on this as I share?
I think that is right. I am a 10-cent shareholder as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think I'm down money. That also could be because maybe people had sort of feared this, and it was a little bit of like, okay, I don't want to say it's not as bad as people thought because it seems pretty terrible, but maybe it was so bad that like you see
what were they
shorts
thinking?
Covering or
because
something
the
like
next step is they can't play games at all. Like, that's how strict this ban is.
Mm-hmm.
So the notion that it wouldn't be priced into the stock price surprises me, right? Like, it just that surprises me. Like, this is, I think, about as strict of a ban as you can get without being an outright ban.
Now, I would say that Tencent did say recently, a couple of weeks ago, that I think only 3% of their revenue comes from people under 18, which to begin with is kind of an insanely low number and really kicks a lot of stereotypes that we have about the industry down the road. But the question I have is whether people think this is actually going to be enforced, or if this is kind of a thing where either people think that everyone's going to play on their parents' account. And we've had this kind of conversation, I think, before. So if you don't want to, we don't have to necessarily but is it going to get enforced, or is it going to be, sort of like this rule is on the books, but it's like jaywalking, where it's like not really actually enforced?
That's the point I was going to kind of make, Jeff, is like, I think the reality of the situation might be from a business, like leaving aside any moral or societal or, like anything like that, just from a pure numbers by the business standpoint here. Like, most 18-year-olds don't have a ton of disposable cash, like the reality is, I've always thought, and I think, the 10-cent number you shared suggests that there's just not a lot of spend. These are free to play games, and these are probably more likely the long tail customers of the free to play space, right? If you think of 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, there are people who have time to invest in the game, and all these free to play games give you opportunities to substitute time for money. I almost wonder, paradoxically, if this isn't actually good for the games because now there's a large user base that wasn't spending a lot because they had lots of time. Now their time is finite. Maybe they'll spend more to short circuit things. Maybe they won't have 70 hours to grind to unlock one new character. So if they really want somebody in League of Legends, they'll just buy the League of Legends person they want, right? And then enjoy the 3 hours that they have with that person or that character.
William,
I hear still interested.
I definitely hear what you're saying on the short term in terms of the business case. Like, hey, you have a wallet to spend. Like, I actually am a pretty big believer in that with gaming. It's like people have a wallet amount that they can spend on this entertainment source, and they will spend it over an hour or 5 hours or 10 hours or 100 hours. So maybe you're right. Maybe revenue doesn't dry up. The problem is if this is actually enforced and people under 18 are really only allowed to play 3 hours a week, that really kills the habit that people have of gaming, so that when they age up, are they going to be passionate gamers? Probably not if they're only allowed to do it 3 hours a week. So it's not like magically all of a sudden when they turn 18, they're going to be like, hey, now I want to play 15 hours a week of gaming. Counter
habit. Yeah, I agree with you. But counterpoint, when you tell kids they can't do something, that makes it more appealing to do. There's plenty of things you can't do until you're 18 or 21 that become major habits in adulthood, right? Like, look at, I hate to say it, but the alcohol industry, right? That hasn't been hurt by under 21 bans, I'm not in any way, I'm not in any way likening games to that industry, but I think you do raise a compelling argument, which is you're right. The thing that concerns me is, there is some habitual, and I'm also skills development. Like, these games are hard to play. If you're coming in cold after, as an 18-year-old, it's tough. Like, I think of all the learnings I've had in games and all the time I put in to be not very good at Valorant, right? Like, imagine if I was an 18-year-old coming into Valorant and I had no prior experience because I didn't allocate the time. But then the counterpoint is that will change how games are designed, right? There'll be games that are better set up for 18-year-olds and their onboarding experiences. But I don't know. I mean, it is like it is.
Here's an interesting thought exercise. Is there a world where this is really bullish for like Huya, Douyu, the streaming companies? Because if kids under 18 can't play games, well, what's the next best thing? They're just going to watch people play games because they want to be involved in the gaming culture, but they can't actually play games. So they're just going to essentially go on Twitch and watch games all day rather than play them. Is that like a second derivative?
Well, yeah. And
interesting play there.
I think that's actually a really interesting point, Jeff, is I think the thing I think is you probably, like, if this is an attempt to stamp out the influence that games have on youth, I don't think this does that. I just don't, because there's so much more built up around games and games culture that I think limiting playtime in and of itself doesn't address all the other touch points people have with games. I think you're right. It might lead to substitution. I think that's a very direct argument. Like, one of the reasons I watch Twitch is when I can't game, right? Like, I'm in bed and I want to go to sleep and I want to play an active experience, or, oh, I don't have long enough to do a queue here, but I can probably drop into so-and-so stream for 5 minutes between meetings at work and just see what's going. Like, it's filling a time for me when I can't play games. I think that's very interesting that the winner here is the substitution media. The direct substitute is probably watching people play games. You're right. I might. That's a very smart point.
Who's streaming on Huya and Douyu?
People over 18? What do you mean?
Yeah.
You don't think they have people streaming on
I
that?
think he wants you to name someone.
I just don't think these are direct substitutes. I don't think the kid who can't play anymore says, well, I'm going to go spend 6 hours watch. People watch people playing games because they have a passion for the game, right? You watch someone playing Apex because you really like, for the most part, playing Apex. And I think if you don't have learned behavior around gaming, because gaming is learned behavior, it's what you get used to. If you don't grow up on that, you're not going to consume that as entertainment. I just think it will have no effect. Like, you guys are making the argument that this isn't going to have a massive negative impact on the gaming industry in China. This effectively kills the gaming industry in China. There is no future for gaming in China. And anyone investing there right now is going to lose their shirt, or the risks are so high, it makes absolutely zero sense to be investing there. And just, I mean, look at the biggest, when you have the biggest Chinese company, gaming company on the planet, right? And I'll bring this article up, Tencent, right? If anyone's going to be bullish on the Chinese market, it's going to be Tencent, and they're investing outside of China, right? It says here, Tencent has more than 7-fold more investment in foreign startups this year. So they're investing heavily outside of China. I don't know why anyone, unless you're on the ground in China and you have connections in the government and you understand the regulatory environment and risks there, I don't know why anyone in their right mind would be touching China with a 10-foot pole right now. It's radioactive.
You think it's that serious? You think it's like games are over in China?
I think being able to build a business around gaming in China is dead today. I don't think there's any point to do it. If you're not, again, if you're Chinese, if you're living there, you understand the risks, you understand the environment, you can navigate it, you have the connections, sure, right? Well, but if you're a VC sitting in San Francisco wondering where I should put my dollars in gaming, China should not be on your radar.
Well, I would argue that was probably the case before this, because this was always a risk, but I don't necessarily, you may not be wrong about your first statement. That was obviously, a hot take, which I love. I feel like your second statement would be true regardless, if this news was out. Like, investing in areas where you're not an expert in general is a bad idea, probably.
Yeah, but you'd be amazed how many investors ignore what is genuinely good advice.
Juice owns Tencent and Wyatt in his investment portfolio and is not an expert in China. So,
Christian says, my question is if there are exceptions to the 3-hour policy and how this policy impacts the talent pipeline for esports. I mean, I don't know I don't know about exceptions. There weren't any mentioned in the article. In terms of talent pipeline, I think it kills it, right? Again, you can't become a great esports champion playing 3 hours a week.
I think that might be the most significant knock on for this is like very few people walk into baseball at 18 years old, and like very few people haven't played baseball and then just start in college and go on to MLB, right? Like these are life development things. Yeah, I think that's the clearer knock on to me. The business side, I'll enjoy playing both sides of the fence and thinking about it from a theoretical perspective because it's fun to do mental gymnastics to make this positive. But on the esports side, yeah, I think it's tough to remain competitive when your talent pipeline is effectively non-existent,
There's a lot of speculation, there's just uncertainty as to the infrastructure, as to how they're going to regulate it, as to the workarounds. When certain websites were blocked, VPNs came up and other masking softwares. To William's point, when you deny something, kids tend to find a way anyways. It makes it more appealing. Uncertainty as to, as it Christian's statement just now, exceptions to the policy, right? Maybe there's certain teams that represent China, like a Chinese team in the Overwatch League, and so they grant them an exception to train because they're representing their country, right? Similar to an Olympic exception. So I feel like there's a lot of skepticism, a lot of uncertainty rather, as to what they can even regulate. I think we had covered numerous stories on facial recognition software to determine age, right? Maybe they move to mobile. Is the scanning the same for mobile? Maybe they use their parents' account. On its face, right? It's an inflammatory article, right? It's terrible on its face if you just read the headline. If you give it a year or two to see what China does to enforce this, what people are doing to get around it, what concessions are made or exceptions are made, still terrible for the esports industry in China. Still, like, no way around that, but perhaps not nail in the coffin just yet. I'm not so sure yet. So that's why I've been quiet and on the fence. Is just like, this is the first article, right? And it's terrible on its face. And if I, as someone that tried to do a lot of business in China in my first 2 years in esports, I can, in retrospect, be like, thank God Paul pulled me away from that and had me focus elsewhere, because these were the concerns we were dealing with 2-3 years ago. Like you said, everyone knew that this was always the risk, and we were trying to do it anyways because it was so lucrative, it was so massive, there were so many people gaming. even if the sponsorship dollars were 10 cents on the dollar to what they are here, they were 10 times as big. So we knew we'd make up for it. But this was always the risk. So again, I want to see this develop a little bit further and answer some of those questions. But I think any way you slice it, it might not be as bad as we think, but it's still not good. That doesn't make it a good thing.
Ramsey says, that's what baffles me. Why did they go straight for gaming and not look at a ban on screen time in general or social media / watching YouTube? I just think those things aren't enemies anymore, right? Like it's the rotating cast of, what is corrupting our children. And it was rap music, and then it was Facebook, and then it was, and now it's gaming. And so gaming's the enemy. So they'll dump on gaming for the next 5 or 10 years. They'll kill any chance of an industry developing there. And then, they'll come around and realize that, someone younger will have a government post there and realize gaming is not, corrupting youth to the point that it needs to be banned, and it'll change. I just think it's sort of a life cycle in these heavily regulated, communist countries where there doesn't have to be good reason around things. Because Ramsey, your point's a good one, right? Like, why one and not the other? I think you're looking for logic in a place where there is none. But I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that before I move on here. All right, let's move on.
Let's do new topic.
Let's talk about Dr. Lupo, guys. Dr. Lupo in the news. 2 news stories, in fact, here, which I will introduce back to back. So the first one, Dr. Lupo leaves Twitch to exclusively stream on YouTube. The move will give Lupo more time to spend with family and the opportunity to try new things.
Wait, what? Does it actually say?
And then, the emptiest suit in all of gaming and esports, Ryan Wyatt, announced, we're building the best gaming platform in the world for creators, publishers, and gamers. Our work isn't done yet, and in many ways, it's just starting. Today, we take another step in that direction by announcing that Tim the Tatman is exclusively streaming on YouTube Gaming. So they've signed exclusivities. No.
The Tim the Tatman video was entertaining. I enjoyed it.
Okay. So 2 exclusivity announcements. How do you guys feel about this? Are we super excited for YouTube Gaming?
Oh, me. Hot take. Literally not going to do anything. I'm just quite serious, because I look at history and I looked at, we saw this before with Mixer. A bunch of major stars, including arguably the biggest star, Ninja, right, went exclusive on Mixer. And what happened? Literally, it moved the needle so little for Mixer that it was shut down in the middle of their exclusivity contracts. They didn't even give them time to finish. As great as these announcements are, and as exciting as it to see YouTube being more serious about streaming as a platform, I don't think this moves the needle at all. I just think we've seen time and again that the mechanism for disrupting Twitch is not talent extraction. It's something else, right? Because it appears that the platform on that talent is relatively fungible, or at least resistant to pulling 1 to 2 people out. And I would be stunned if this brings significant new eyeballs to YouTube. I'd be stunned.
But is that what they're trying to do? I love that. I love the take, but is that what they're trying to do? Are they trying to bring new eyeballs to YouTube, or are they trying to stop the loss of eyeballs to competitors like Facebook and Twitch? Sorry, I love Arrested Development, so go ahead and.
So, I mean, this meme is just too good in these situations, but so it's funny. I thought about what I was going to say to this story, and as you guys probably know, I do love to play devil's advocate, but this actually was going to be my take even before I heard William's take. I think there's a difference here, and the difference, and I know that we like to hate on YouTube Gaming here, and that's what we do, but the reason why I think there could be a difference here, where this time could be different, is because YouTube has an audience, right? People are going to YouTube to watch gaming. They're just not going to YouTube to watch live streaming. If what Mixer had was nothing, right? Mixer was an entity that nobody had heard of. that you had to draw people away from Twitch. YouTube, you just have to keep people there and train them to look at it for live streaming. I'm not saying it's going to work, but there's a chance that it could go down differently than Mixer. And I'm not surprised that they're trying this. It will be interesting this isn't going to kill Twitch. Obviously, let's not be hyperbolic or ridiculous, but I think this will be a better strategy than what Mixer. This will work better.
Let me ask,
than it did for Mixer.
Okay, but I want to push back on Jeff. Hold on, Jeff. Doesn't that argument literally contradict itself? Because the point you would make is, okay, bringing these content creators will bring eyeballs. Your point is YouTube already has eyeballs. Okay, so how is more eyeballs
a shorter? Well, because the way advertising works is you sell on a duration of time, right? So it's like keep the eyeballs for longer. Like, would Netflix? Netflix is a bad example. But would you rather someone play your game or watch it for an hour a day or 5 hours a day, William? The answer is 5.
Take my point here. I'm being a bit facetious, right? But take my point here, which is I see a more direct impact on the Mixer platform, which is they just need viewers. These people will bring viewers. They need awareness. These people will bring awareness, right? You're aware of YouTube, right? And you're already consuming YouTube. I would guess most of the audience is consuming on a daily basis.
But that's why it would work, because you're already using it. Now they're using it for
let Paul get it. Let Paul get in.
There's I see where the gap is here. I think there's a subtlety that I'm hoping everyone can agree on here, which is streaming on YouTube and VOD on YouTube are really two different products, and they're almost like two different platforms. And so while gaming VODs on YouTube have a huge audience, streaming on YouTube does not, and has lagged Twitch considerably. And you see a guy like Dr. Disrespect who moved from Twitch to YouTube, and we know he's making a quarter of what he was making before on Twitch, right? Because the audience is smaller on YouTube, the streaming audience is smaller on YouTube, and because the monetization on YouTube is worse. So, I think we have to treat YouTube gaming streaming and YouTube gaming VOD as two almost like two different platforms, because they are really, I think, in many ways.
So I'm curious though, if the revenue, right, the ad revenue from these two different platforms are also that different. I mean, obviously they
massively different,
right? So they have the same access to the same advertising partners, don't they? It's just a matter of signing one up for this platform or the other, or do you think that they're also run independently of one another? Because my question here is, are we just moving ad revenue from one pocket to the other pocket and doing nothing to really expand the business? And it's an expensive marketing effort.
Here's the problem, right? YouTube fundamentally, their VOD product is fundamentally flawed, right? It's a horrible piece of technology that should never be as big as it is today, but they were first, really, in a lot of ways. And the advertising there is borderline, it's not misleading, but when's the last time you clicked on an ad on YouTube? Probably never, right? And so to me, that whole business relied on it being first, right? And gain scale because it was first. And it will always have scale now, and it will always be relevant now because of that. Their streaming product was not first, was not, doesn't have that level of scale. And so what has happened is you have a guy like Ryan Wyatt who has no clue what he's doing, right? Went from playing local COD tournaments to running YouTube gaming and has zero clue about business. And basically they said, well, give us a streaming product. So what does he do? He looks at Twitch, the leader, and all YouTube gaming has done, if you look at their track record, is copy feature for feature Twitch literally over the last 5 years. Literally. No innovation. Zero. Twitch comes out with a feature, clips. 2 years later, YouTube does clips. Twitch comes out with a feature, subscription. 2 years later, right? It's literally feature for feature, just knocked off. And I think what YouTube has sort of conceded is they don't know how to do live streaming. Really, all they know how to do is knock off Twitch. It hasn't been working that well. And so let's knock off Mixer. Let's try and, buy our way into success here, because they can't innovate into a bigger audience. They haven't figured out what is the trick to make YouTube streaming a dominant force in the industry, which I think is a shame because given the success of VOD on YouTube, it should be relatively easy. And I've always been critical of YouTube because it should be relatively easy.
So if you were running YouTube, what would you do then? How would you have all these people watching VOD? You want to bring them over to live streaming. What
I would definitely not do is sign Lupo and Tim the Tatman, and I'll tell you why, right? Those guys, to both of your points, already post tons of content on YouTube. And those VODs monetize very well for those creators and for YouTube, right? Why would you pay them dollars other than for the appearance sake that you're doing something to fight Twitch? Why pay them dollars when you already have their content? Their entire live streams are posted on YouTube, right? Their clips are posted on YouTube. You're monetizing those stars. Why pay them a cent other than a pure PR move to make Ryan Wyatt look good to his boss like he's doing something to fight Twitch?
But I just don't understand. I don't understand the notion of why it wouldn't be a great thing to do to say people are watching this on YouTube. Now this person streams exclusively here. You're watching his live stream hours later. He's going to live stream in 10 minutes. Click on the link and watch the live stream live. Why? I don't understand why that wouldn't be like a good cross sell. It's so much easier to cross sell.
Jeff, I'll tell you why. Do you, when you take your wife out for a nice date night, do you take her to McDonald's?
Depends. I'll follow the no, I guess.
No. Right?
I'm not sure where we're going with this.
The world has come to see Twitch as the dominant streaming platform for gaming, right? So anyone with a legitimate, who makes a legitimate decision to want to stream content, gaming content, typically will choose to go to Twitch. That they own that mind share, right? Game streaming happens on Twitch. They're the leader. They have that mind share. Yeah. YouTube just doesn't have that same level of mind share. You don't associate YouTube with streaming of gaming.
So what should Ryan Wyatt do? Like nothing? Like, is it just, hey, let's every company give up? Like Twitch is the only.
No, but you definitely, don't do things that we know don't work, right? And B, you definitely don't just copy feature for feature your major competitor. You have to put something out that Twitch does not have. What is that thing? What is YouTube doing?
I do agree with that. I mean, obviously, if they had a better user experience or some sort of unique technology, like product that was different, that would bring users across. But I think that my whole point of playing devil's advocate was just to say that it is a lot easier, I think, to keep someone on your platform and cross sell them than it is to bring them completely in. If the argument that you made that people are already watching Tim the Tatman and Dr. Lupo on YouTube is exactly why I'm more bullish, because I think it's very easy if someone's watching it there to keep them there to watch it live. If we're assuming that so let me actually take a step back. Is it correct to assume that the people who are watching Tim the Tatman and Dr. Lupo highlights on YouTube are also watching them on Twitch? Because if it's two different people, if there are two different people in the world, there are people who watch live stream and people who watch VOD, then my argument doesn't hold as much water. But if there are eyeballs that are following them to Twitch after watching them on YouTube, I think they can maybe keep some of them on YouTube, and that's the bet they're making.
Maybe. You're assuming their platform allows for that kind of discovery, for example.
If their platform just sucks, then yeah, they're fucked.
But it does. It's a cheap Twitch knockoff, too, right? But that's my point. The problem's not going and signing, giving millions of dollars to, here's the tough question for all of you. Who wants to bet in 5 years either Lupo or Tim the Tatman are back on Twitch? Anyone want to take that bet?
Well, I think I want to take the same side as you're on.
I don't want to take the bet.
Guaranteed. I will say right now, guaranteed one or both are back on Twitch in the next 5 years. This is a cash grab for them. YouTube gaming is the current. They're the current. They're the current patsies of the gaming industry, right? Like easy to take advantage of them. They're not that bright, and
look, 5 years is a long time. If you gave me odds as to they won't renew their contract,
I don't agree with this characterization of YouTube gaming. By the way, I don't want to go into that, but I think that's an unfair, an unfairly harsh criticism. But the point I think we can all agree on is we're not going to read a headline tomorrow, which is Amazon sells Twitch for, $300. The platform has no future now that, Tim the Tatman has been poached by YouTube, right? Like the point is, however, whether this is somewhat significant, very significant, or insignificant, I think we can all agree that this by itself doesn't spell doomsday for Twitch, right? We all agree to that, right?
No,
it
nothing's
doesn't.
going
Of
to
course,
spell doomsday for Twitch.
Yeah, but
they're the leader.
Yeah, but can this be an effective marketing campaign?
The top 25 Twitch streamers could get signed by YouTube tomorrow, and YouTube would still lag behind Twitch in terms of streaming. Like who they sign makes no difference. We've learned it's the platform that matters. It's not the star.
One other thing I would bring up is we keep talking about there's two outcomes here, like Twitch dies and YouTube becomes the king, or this was stupid. Like these can be good marketing contracts that like have a return on investment that is more than what they're paying them, and YouTube might not take over the world of live streaming. Like this can help them be a stronger number 2 player and accrue some eyeballs and make more ad dollars than they're giving out in exclusives.
And
that's what we should be evaluating here.
Fair to say that if we've learned anything from not live streaming, but the traditional streaming market, it's that there is now clearly scope for an abundance of providers, right? It used to be 10 years ago, it was Netflix. That's it, right? Now I think everyone watching this podcast, I'd be surprised if you didn't subscribe to 3 different streaming services. I'd be stunned if you didn't have 3 different services you're subscribed to regularly. So it is fair to say that the landscape could fragment, right? Or should fragment based on how other streaming services have evolved in similar media landscapes.
This will go down. These are optics plays. This is YouTube signing big name talent again, so that the higher ups at Google and YouTube go, we're doing something, right? We're trying something. This makes sense, right? We're competing. We're taking it to Twitch. Now, it's the totally wrong thing to be doing, but I get why they're doing it. They're out of ideas, right? They're out of features to copy. And so what do you do now? You try and steal talent. It will prove to be only good for Tim the Tatman and Lupo. Like, great on those guys for extracting dollars. If I'm on Twitch today, I would be talking to YouTube about getting a big paycheck. You know what I mean? Like I'm surprised XQC and all these guys are not having the same conversations if YouTube is handing out dollars. And in 2 years, when I'm making a quarter of what I was making on Twitch, I just go back. And I think you're going to see a lot of this back and forth over the next few years, because they're going to go to whoever's handing out dollars, and the people handing out dollars I think in the end will realize these were bad deals. Like, I don't think YouTube, I don't know what they're paying Tim the Tatman. I don't know what they're paying Lupo. None of it was made public, but
wasn't there some wording that they were set for life after this?
Well,
or
I was going to say, I don't love in the press release how Lupo said he's going to be able to spend more time with his family. Like, if I were YouTube Gaming, I'd be like, well, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, this isn't a retirement package. Like, what is going on here?
Well, I mean, that's the executives at YouTube Gaming are basically on retirement mode, right? They spend more time playing golf than building their business. Christian says YouTube has to augment the streaming experience to a whole new level. Like Paul said, innovation. I agree. I can tell you I'm way more.
You agree with that?
I do. Taylor says, I can tell you I'm way more engaged with the Twitch stream than I am a YouTube stream. And I think Twitch develops an actual community where YouTube falls short in doing so. That I think is really interesting insight, because that's my personal experience also. I could never really put my finger on why. But I'm curious if you guys have thoughts on that or have a similar experience. Yes, no, maybe.
I don't have a lot of experience with YouTube streaming. I personally, what I do is I wait for I follow my favorite creators across various socials, and I'll watch the 2-minute clip of like something cool that they reposted to TikTok or Instagram or YouTube proper, not YouTube, streaming. So I think I'm the wrong audience for this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's more engaging to me. I have that's how I prefer to receive the content, I suppose. Maybe it's my time. I don't have the time for it.
You guys, the defenders of YouTube here, you remember the Stadia announcement when they had like Ryan and the YouTube executives gaming executives come on the stage during the Stadia? Do you remember what they plugged? Right, this idea that you could have your viewers jump in mid-game and play with you and join you, and like, where is all that functionality? Where is all that BS
nobody has Stadia, so it's not possible to have people who don't exist use a product that doesn't exist.
No, but yeah. It's like, again, it's sort of, it's not because they lack the stars, right? It's because they haven't delivered on anything that they said they were going to do, or on anything innovative, or on anything different from Twitch. I don't think anyone can point to one feature that YouTube gaming has that Twitch does not. Not one. What's like one reason why you would stream there instead of on Twitch? Christian says, if YouTube can build a platform that drawing talent to move to the platform for augmented experience and monetization opportunities, that is a stronger strategy. I see competition with game platforms. I mean, augmented experience and better monetization, those are where I think those are the places where YouTube could beat Twitch. Yeah, like, I think no question. YouTube should be the dominant streaming platform. It should not be Twitch. It should be YouTube because of their utter dominance and monopoly in VOD. Like, the fact that they're not is mind-boggling.
So shouldn't you be more bullish about this move then? This is my exact
point.
No,
because you need to change the management who are not running. Like, it's like saying you have the perfect business and the perfect opportunity to dominate a space, but you haven't been for the last 2 years. Well, why?
They weren't doing the right marketing strategy.
Well, someone was not doing the right things, was not making the right moves.
Now they are. Now they're they're earning their paycheck.
Yeah, that's it. Optics
Brian
place.
Wyatt, call me. I'll come work for YouTube Gaming.
Robert says world class. There you go. All right. We want to move on. You guys have any other thoughts on this?
Can move on.
Can we talk about Japanese gadgets? This is kind of a fun story.
It's a good segue.
Yeah. Japan has the perfect gadget for those who love snacking while gaming. There you go. It says Japan's famous for many things, including rich culture, video games, anime, delicious food, and gadgets. Obviously, another Japanese tradition is cleanliness, and so many use chopsticks when they eat things like potato chips, popcorn, etc. So a local company released this gaming chopsticks holder. So it's held between your fingers while you game both on consoles and smartphones. It's disposable. It lets you attach chopsticks to it that are disposable. And basically, you can use it to continue gaming, but also pick up potato chips without touching your hands. So your hands stay completely grease or chip dust free. Greatest gaming invention ever, or just great gaming invention?
All our listeners are so happy that we made it to this part of the show. This is clearly this week's headline. They're like, I was upset with YouTube's lack of innovation, so thank God someone's doing something to spice things up here.
More innovation with gaming chopsticks holder than at YouTube Gaming. That's the headline.
It's a better idea than I think it's getting credit for. That doesn't mean it's a good idea, but because the thing I don't understand is you still take your hand away from the controller to eat. So why don't you just have chopsticks resting by your chip plate? Like, how much more efficient is it to have chopsticks grafted to your hands?
That is an excellent question, William.
I want videos of people spilling ramen all over their pants because they can't hold the chopsticks right, and they're putting their controller up to their face.
I love this. It has the right way, or I obviously can't read any of this, but there's clearly a right way and wrong way of doing this.
This is kind of the perfect example of what we always talk about, where like products take a product and then just say like gaming this, where it's like, this is a gaming toilet. Like, it lets you play games while you're on the toilet. It's just a toilet, but like, you know, the seat is more comfortable so you can sit there and game while you're going to the bathroom for longer. Like, none of these things are necessary, but I get that it's obviously just a sort of a funny article, but it's weird.
All right. That's a good segue. We don't need to talk about the chopsticks holders anymore. What I do want to talk about though is Yougov. And for those of you who don't know, Yougov, they're generous sponsors of the Business of Esports live stream and the after show. They provide the absolute best data on esports, on gamers, on games. I highly recommend reaching out to them on Twitter, on LinkedIn, wherever you find them. And also check out yougov.com. I'll put the link in the chat /gaming-esports. But I do have a few fun kind of data points from Yougov this week, so we can do a little Yougov Insights segment here. And then while we're doing that, I'll put this link in the chat, and you guys can go check them out. So let me bring up a couple here, guys. Sorry, I need to switch over to a different screen. Definitely some interesting ones this week. This one about esports fans. Hang on, let's bring this up. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Is that big enough? There you go. And this one was interesting. They said the question was here: which esports team's fans are most likely to? Okay. ... And it's the percentage of a team's fans who agree with each statement. This is 18 plus. So they asked which esports team's fans are most likely to care about where products they buy are made. Interestingly enough, 81% of Team Liquid's fans agree with that statement. In other words, they care about where products they buy are made. You compare that with, on the other end, TSM, where only 70% care. Still both quite high. Closer was which esports teams fans are most likely to often snack between meals. There, if you look at all of the teams, all the major teams, fans of all of these teams seem to often snack between meals. You go from a high of 80% with Cloud9 to 75% for TSM. Also interesting, I found in both of these, TSM and like, there are teams that always seem to appear at opposite ends of the spectrum, like Cloud9 and TSM, and two of these appear at opposite ends of the spectrum, basically. And that probably says a lot about their fans, right? That their fans are homogeneous in some way to a certain team and distinct from another team's fans. So the third one here, which esports team's fans are most likely to give up their bank account for cryptocurrency? Here, a bigger delta between the top one and the bottom one. Again, TSM at the top, 63%. C9, only 44%. TSM response and FTX sponsorship. Was this data known before the deal? That's an actually really interesting point. But like, look how... I wonder if that was part of FTX's thinking, right? If they use this data to say... The TSM fans are most likely to adopt crypto, so let's go after them most aggressively, versus C9, where they're considerably less likely, significantly less likely to give up their bank account for crypto. I mean, Jimmy, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you have any insight.
I don't know whether it's more interesting if they did use this data and it was like that's why they picked TSM, or if this is after this has come out and it's sort of like the fans of TSM now know about this sponsorship, so they're more comfortable with crypto. Either way, it's like good on FTX and great data from Yougov. It's either the data drove the decision, which is obviously awesome, or the sponsorship is really working, which is arguably even better. So
the data confirmed the ROI, right? The data confirmed that there's a tangible effect.
Because I'm not sure when this data was captured either. We should ask Yougov, and I'm not sure if they're clients of Yougov, as they clearly should be with this type of actionable intel. But that Jeff made, nothing to add to Jeff's great point.
I was going to ask you, Jimmy, if you knew what the date of this study was, but I don't have it.
Not
and let me just touch on the last one here. Which esports teams fans are most likely to believe sports need to be more inclusive? Interesting TSM at the bottom of that list. And again, pretty far from Evil Geniuses at the top. Correct me if I'm wrong. Evil Geniuses Canadian, right? Esports team? Are they Canadian?
I believe they're isn't their CEO a female as well? So maybe
that's true, actually. Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know.
Jeff.
You're the Canadian
that says either, but it's interesting.
I thought it was the duty of Canadians to know which of their actors and sports and companies were from. I did a quick Google search and it said it's from British Columbia.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so Canadian and female-led team. Again, the data sort of backing up the intangibles there. I wanted to. Sorry, I'm looking at this other one here. Let me bring up a second one here. I have another good one here. This is brand rankers. So this is looking at correlation basically between certain brands and followers of Rocket League specifically, which I thought was interesting. And so what they did was the target definition says, which, if any, of the following esports games franchises do you watch or follow? Right? That's how they got US Rocket League esports followers. And they correlate that with top owned and considered brands. So for example, if you look at Rocket League followers in the US, they're far more likely to be Nike customers than sort of the national average or the national representation here, right? They're far more likely to be Under Armour customers, Adidas customers, compared to, again, the average. When you're looking at brands they're considering, again, Nike and Under Armour come out significantly on top. Where the national average becomes closer is things like Levi's, Wrangler at the bottom, where you don't have significantly more Rocket League followers compared to the national average. I don't know if there's anything in here, guys, that stands out to you. I was very impressed because I always thought Rocket League trended a bit younger. Mm-hmm. This is obviously a U.S. adult population, but Nike and Under Armour are big. Like, these are athletic brands. It confirms the affinity between esports and athletic brands, I think. I'm curious what else you guys take away from this.
I'm looking at Fossil personally on both of these current customers and brand considerers. Right on the left, Fossil 1% national versus 21% in Rocket League, and then on the right, the considerers, again, very small national, 7% versus 29% in Rocket League. I just think if I'm Fossil and I'm trying to get the most bang for my buck, I don't have the money like Nike to just slather myself everywhere and just dominate, right? And you really need to convert, or you really need to compete.
Does it surprise you when you see, like, again, this is very specific. These are followers of Rocket League esports, right?
Yeah.
Does it surprise you that these brands don't target more specifically when you see data this conclusive, right? And you pointed out Fossil, Jimmy, but I could look at Timberland, Champion, right, where there's a huge delta between the national average and Rocket League esports followers. But I think the general conclusion is also followers of Rocket League esports are an incredibly valuable demographic to be going after and massively untapped, it feels like. Mm-hmm. William, I don't know if you had thoughts on that.
I mean,
you compete in Rocket League, right?
Yes. Yeah. I believe so. Yeah, OXG does. But I mean, my thought on this is more the criticism leveled against esports is the consumer doesn't monetize, right? That's often one of the arguments against the space today. This looks like the consumer monetizes crazily. Look at that left-hand side, right?
Yeah.
So yes, this could just be Rocket League is an amazing game, right? But maybe this is also saying, hey, something's changing with the esports customer. They do spend if they're targeted correctly, or they do spend along certain psychographic lines.
True. It's a good point. Ramsey had a good question here. Do they compare these to traditional sports fans or the general public? I wonder if there are any regional factors in play here. I'm sure they have a demographic profile for each team. Ramsey, it's an excellent question. I know, and Jimmy, maybe you can back me up on this. I know they are able to get more granular even than what I showed you there. So like they are able to pull, I'm pretty sure, not just esports fans of those teams, but esports fans of those teams in specific regions, and suss out those very subtle differences. I don't have access to that data in front of me right now, but that is absolutely something, if you're looking, that Yougov can do.
I had the privilege of a walkthrough to see the software that they use to capture, or rather to display the data that they capture from all of their market research reports. And it pretty much depends on, I suppose, what we're presenting, I suppose, is what they've shown us, the reports that they put out that they think are newsworthy or headline grabbing, ones that are relevant to their clients. But to that same extent, if you are a client of theirs, you can ask for, like Paul said, some incredibly nuanced information, where if you wanted something particular to a specific region or to a specific esport, or a comparison across, brands that aren't on this list that you're trying to acquire as a sponsor and you're a team, or you are that sponsor and you're trying to learn more about your own appeal in esports, it's tremendous, the specificity that you can actually narrow down on their reports in the portal that I saw. We're at a slight disadvantage because we're just kind of sharing, I think, information that's been shared with us, really just as a taste, honestly, right, to how deep this can really go and how insightful it is.
Yeah, Ramsey, and so happy to connect you, by the way, if you're interested. If you're looking for something specific, reach out to me or Jimmy or the folks at Yougov. Again, the amount of granularity you can get is astounding. Robert says yes from BC. Okay, cool. Yeah, they are a Canadian team. Christian says, doesn't this show an overlapping audience? Are Rocket League followers more active or sport loving since we see those brands in those space? I think that's a logical conclusion to draw, that they're consumers that spend money, and they clearly like these activewear kind of brands. I mean, I wouldn't put Fossil or like Timberland in activewear, but maybe they do. But clearly, there is some correlation there. Ramsey says, "Great, thanks, guys. This is a great teaser. You're making the sponsorship worthwhile." Ramsey, appreciate the kind words. And it is fun because the data is like, it's eye-opening. So much of this you just sometimes don't think about, you don't realize, and just fantastic like sales tool if you're operating in the esports space. So definitely go check them out, guys. I'll link it again, yougov.com/gaming-esports. There's a bunch of free reports and free data on there. But if you're operating in or around the space, you're looking for data on the really best data on gaming, games, gamers, esports, etc. Highly recommend you reaching out to anyone at Yougov. They'll be happy to help. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk. Let's do another story here. Hang on, gotta flip back. We did the Japanese gadget. That was the important story we got out of the way. We just did a serious. Actually, let's talk about this. This one's interesting. It's a Tencent story, but not the one you would think. But it's a good segue from Canadian stuff. Oops, that's not the screen I wanted to share. There we go. So here the headline is: check out the slick esports coffee shop. Tim Hortons and Tencent just opened in Shenzhen, China. So esports, obviously, up until the 3-hour-a-week thing, big deal in China. But Tim Hortons, in collaboration with Tencent, just opened a state-of-the-art esports facility in Shenzhen. Maybe not the best timing. The coffee shop will have esports-themed food and drink items that they can buy in between matches of CSGO, League of Legends, etc. It's a joint venture between Tencent and fast food chain Tim Hortons. They can watch esports tournaments, watch content creators. There are some pictures here of the restaurant, which are actually really cool. I don't know if you guys can see them here.
Yeah, we can.
Tim's X Tencent.
Is that an airport? It really looks like an airport.
And so this is inside the Tim Hortons. For those who are not Canadian, Tim Hortons is,
Dunkin'
I guess,
Donuts.
the Dunkin' Donuts of Canada, but has far more cultural significance in Canada, at least. It is very quintessentially Canadian.
So this is just themed, though. There's no PCs inside or gaming.
No, there
It's
are.
just like, okay.
There are. You can play. There's an actual LAN center.
Oh, so I saw these chairs. I just thought you get to sit in the chair.
Didn't look like
oh,
there
this
was
is cool.
computers.
Maybe
but
not
they
in
must
that
be there.
picture, but the article did mention that there were. The
'Cause
article
this
did.
could- Sorry, this could be like the hottest 18 and up after hours spot, right? If it's banned for all these kids, and now we have like this awesome adult LAN center. I was just thinking, like, how do you pivot from that?
like the equivalent of Prohibition era speakeasies are like Tim Hortons LAN centers in China. Supposedly, it says it's the first of many locations they're planning on rolling out. I mean, I don't know. It's obviously kind of a silly story, but it is interesting, especially in the context of the sort of the regulations around 3 hours. Have they maybe looked at Yougov data and decided that most coffee drinkers are 18 plus, and therefore this makes a lot of sense? I don't know.
That seems likely. I understand. I don't really necessarily understand this for Tim Hortons, to be honest. Outside of it being like a little bit of a gimmick, you know.
And why
coffee
in China, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean,
If you're Tim Hortons.
I mean, maybe it's knowing. Maybe Tim Hortons probably just licensed their name to someone in China, or no, who knows? Maybe it's not even Tim Hortons. Maybe it's just some guy. You know, this is China for crying out loud. It could be just some guy throwing up Tim Hortons on a sign, and Tim Hortons in Canada has nothing to do with it. Realistically, that's actually possible. But for me, the LAN center coffee shop thing just doesn't make sense, because coffee shops are typically pretty habitual in out. Like, I know Starbucks, you know, invented sort of the third place, and people do pre-COVID like go to study there and sort of hang out there a little bit. But like generally the best performing coffee shops are kind of like in and out, high throughput, low cost, like in a good area, like small shop kind of thing. So I just don't know like why they necessarily why people would want to go game in a coffee shop.
Well, there's an obsession with American culture, right? And I think, William, you probably have more experience with understanding those barriers. But I always thought, obsession might be the wrong word. There's a fond appreciation and a strong, I think, appeal of American culture in those regions.
So they should have put a damn McDonald's in, Jimmy.
Yeah,
we don't have Tim Hortons.
This is not American culture at all.
No, it's maybe it extends North American. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
I mean, there's a massive population in Canada of Chinese, right? Who go there to park dollars in real estate. You know, it's safe. The schools are good. You know, the whole bit. So that there's a huge Chinese population in like places like Vancouver and Toronto. Could it be that, you know, they know people when they go back home, they'll be hankering for a Tim's double, like, and therefore this is how you capture them? I don't know.
I think you pair this with an esports team. You make regular appearances, autographs, ticketed events or signings, and I don't know. There's something fun there.
Why not let me ask this question. Sorry to stay on this, but I'm fascinated by it. If Enthusiast Gaming announced we're going to do, you know, Tim Hortons esports LAN centers in Canada, right? Would anyone even think twice about, like, this is such a great idea? Would anyone question it?
No, probably. I mean, less so. I wouldn't. I probably would say sort of the same thing about why it has to be with Tim Hortons. But I mean, if Tim Hortons was putting up the capital or whatever, then maybe it would make sense as a deal. But
well, like Paul said, it's in Canada.
But it's also like it's more equivalent to a Starbucks in the sense that people go to sit at a Tim Hortons, right? Like it's not always in and out. They are pretty pleasant places to sit and have a sandwich and a coffee and, you know.
So, yeah, but Jeff is right that the grab and go business model is the preferred business model for coffee shops. This is weird to me because this says grab and stay. And again, like coffee is a great good if it's high cycle time, but how many $2 Tim Hortons coffees can you sell to people in the coffee shop? You know, like I just, to me, this is more of a PR play and an awareness play, I think, and maybe an opportunity for Tim's to connect with Tencent and figure out if there's other mutual opportunities here. But I don't like this.
How do you feel about Taylor's comment here? Because I like this. Look at Esports Arena and Walmart. Same idea in a way.
Totally different business model. What has IKEA taught you? Get people to stick around. They buy more. This is a totally different parallel. That is.
But wouldn't you buy more if you're at Tim Hortons for like 4 hours?
Again, it's counterpoint. So, I mean, like, yes, maybe you get another $2 coffee out of someone, but that's not worth all the additional real estate and space and expense and maintenance, right? If you got somebody to stick around at a Walmart, who knows what else they might buy? Walmart's huge and it sells everything. And the longer you're in there, the more stuff you notice. That's the IKEA innovation and why IKEA opened restaurants. And it works for businesses that are more experiential and event driven. Again, I think Jeff's right. Coffee shop, the preferred model. Like, if Starbucks wanted to keep you around for forever, right? Like, if that was how they made all their money, and Starbucks has probably figured out coffee, I think they would not, like, they would do their business very differently. They wouldn't allow, for example, app ordering in advance, right? Because they'd want you to come in and have the experience of interacting with the barista and get comfortable and cozy up in a chair while you wait for your coffee to be made. And no, Starbucks wants you in and out. And yeah, they have a third place, but even I think recently Starbucks has been de-emphasizing the third place stuff. Like, they're doing more stores, smaller format, no.
The other thing about Walmart, I mean, I don't know how well those esports arenas in Walmart have done. I would be curious if anyone does have some info there. But Walmarts are also massive boxes, and the areas where Walmarts are, they are sort of like, that is a place where people go. It's very different than when I'm picturing a Tim Hortons. I'm picturing like in a city, sort of a crowded piece of real estate. Walmart, you have the space. The rent is probably very cheap. At Tim Hortons, where they typically are, it's just the economics, I think, are not going to be the same.
Keep in mind, for other than like downtown Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver, a lot of Canada is really spread out, right? There's a lot of like Tim Hortons that are just there next to a gas station or something, right? Like, where's Lindsay when we need her?
Yeah, talking about how great the gas station land centers are. I just don't understand rural America and rural Canada, I guess.
Ramsey says, yeah, there's a major culture difference for coffee shops internationally. For example, the Tim Hortons in the UAE is more of a social spot similar to Starbucks. Yeah, it's like that in Canada too, Ramsey. So coffees also sell for $7 to $8 there. I don't drink coffee, but I don't know if it's that expensive in Canada, but it's definitely more premium these days. Taylor says, if you have a parent that needs to study or relax a while with a coffee while their kid plays a game for a while, it works the day away. I mean, true. I don't know how many. Do you guys buy that use case, or is it too niche?
It feels a little niche. I mean, actually, as I'm saying, is I could probably understand if this was a WeWork and it was like literally this is where people actually go to work, and then there was a daycare center that created a LAN center, and maybe that's actually a pretty good model to consider, sort of thing. But that's just a daycare center. I don't know if that use case is widespread enough where it makes sense to put in what is a pretty serious capital commitment, right? To build a LAN center, it's going to cost you a few $100,000.
You have to be careful that what you're trying to do is not modernize an existing business model rather than invent a new business model. So the counterpoint I would give here is, if that argument worked, why don't coffee shops have built-in movie theaters? Because kids can come and watch TV and the parent can chill out, with a no, they don't have it because it's not an efficient use of space. It's not the core business model. It's a cycle time business. So no. Sorry,
I got dragged to Tim Hortons a lot by my mom, so I would have appreciated a LAN center in the Tim Hortons. But I mean, maybe that's just me, because I did spend a lot of time, and I know my mom watches these, so I probably would have enjoyed the Tim Hortons
coffee. More money there, or no?
She was going to drink her Tim Hortons coffee no matter what. John says, Paul said it. This is the value of a place to sit. Basically, everyone is playing Honor of Kings in China all the time anyway. So this is a way of differentiating and making a cool space to do it. Yeah, I don't think it's much more complicated than that. On your own or with friends, and you get game-themed rewards. Remember, in China, it's all WeChat and Alipay-based payments, and people are used to getting all kinds of promos, rewards through that. That's actually an interesting angle, working it sort of into the cultural and sort of everyday fabric. This is what you said here exactly, which are now going to promote 10-cent games in Tim Hortons. Sorry for the run-on. I follow esports in China. I think you guys hit on the new NPPA regs earlier, but I was AFK. John, I'm be curious to get your thoughts on that when you go back and watch it. If you do, would love to hear them. All right. If Taylor's still in here, I have to do this story for him. So I want to get to it because it's a Razer story. And the headline here is Faker teams up with Razer to design and develop gaming peripherals. So maybe I'm sure this is maybe not that argued in the league world, but the greatest League of Legends player of all time collaborating with Razer to design a series of gaming peripherals, including a mouse and mouse pad. They will be sold in the T1 shop in Seoul, and I assume they will be sold in Razer stores. It's not mentioned here specifically. Maybe Taylor knows. And it's interesting because we haven't seen that many collaborations between pro players and hardware manufacturers. There have been some, right? There's the Shroud and Logitech where it's branded and supposedly there was collaboration there. There was, I'm trying to think of others. Scream and Final Mouse, right? Did a collaboration where they did a mouse together. Ninja did a mouse with Final Mouse. We have the Booga peripherals at Walmart, or at not Walmart.
Five Below.
Five Below.
Didn't you just get the Courage JD headset at Razer?
That's true. Courage right? JD did do a partnership. I think what I like about this is, unlike the Courage JD thing, Faker's a guy with real credibility from a performance standpoint, right? Like, I don't want to play like Courage. I definitely don't want that. But I would like to be as good as Faker. What's interesting, and maybe you guys knew this or didn't know this, but Faker actually did a collab with Samsung. He did a monitor. In fact, the same monitor that I use, they did a Faker version. It was just red instead of blue. Like, it was just a color difference. There was nothing specific about it. But how do you guys feel about performance peripherals being done in conjunction with top esports athletes? Is it a trend you like? Is it is this going to be a huge success?
It's a great idea. We see it in shoes. We see it in makeup. We see it in tons of different industries. It should happen more often here. Plain, simple, in and out. Yes.
Why do you think it doesn't, William? Because it really doesn't.
Yeah. Because it's a newer industry. And because I think it's difficult for these big brands to interact and get deals with streamers and content creators and the influencers, historically, right? It's just been difficult. It's been a different industry. Probably the agencies and the branding contacts that people had historically didn't have a way of getting in touch with them easily. They weren't probably part of standard pitch portfolios. All that's changing. We're just going to see it a lot more.
But to me, there's an important difference here, which is there's a difference between taking an influencer who isn't necessarily good at the games and making a flavor of G Fuel or making a mouse pad that has their logo on it. Like that to me is one thing. To me, that's very different from taking someone who's the greatest, League of Legends player ever and saying, design us a mouse, right? Make a mouse that is going to be great for you. And I don't know if that's the process Razer's going through with Faker. I don't know. I don't know if they're just going to slap Faker's logo on a Razer Viper or something like that. But
oddly, I'm fine with both approaches. I mean, I quite seriously, I obviously like the Faker build his dream product more because I think that's better. That leads to innovation. It's exciting, right? But oddly, I'm okay with either. I'm okay with the label slap too. There should just be more. These people play the games for a living. They should be monetizing their influence more directly. And particularly, again, marquee names like this, you should see more cross activations with.
Why don't we then? You think it's just what you said before?
Literally,
or you think it's more
literally
like
just what I said. Literally
enough
just what I said.
mainstream, mainstream. Does to some
you have
extent
to
like
warm
is
up to it.
Logitech?
Hold on, you have to warm up to it. Think that you're a huge brand and you want to do a product. Before you do a product line, if I go in and pitch, I'm going to do a product line. My boss is going to come back to me and say, why don't we start with a sponsorship? Let's get the ROI on a 12-month, 18-month sponsorship, see how that performs, then come back. Then we can talk full-in product. That's all that's happening here. It takes time for the industry to thaw around these. It's a major commitment to manufacture and produce peripherals and durable consumer goods. It's hard to do. It takes warming up to and series of staged investments.
Can I just put one thought on the table here, which is, and Jeff, to your question, I just looked it up. Okay. Faker has 411,000 followers on Twitter. Okay. Courage has 1.8 million followers on Twitter, right? I couldn't care less about a headset tuned by Courage. Yeah, the blue and gold's kind of a cool colorway, but like, I don't like Courage tuning a headset for a specific game is not like making me jump up and down and get excited about it. Faker does, because I know he's going to have some, special sauce in there. He's in his head that it will be made in a certain way that may improve my performance. Are the decisions being made purely just on the size of influence? And the reality is the top tier esports pros don't have the following of the top content creators and streamers.
Well, I guess the simple answer is yes. I'm a little bit confused exactly. Like, there's two different sides of the market. I think they will both exist. I'm just not sure. I'm trying to put it in a parallel.
But is it like
sports?
Ramsey?
I don't know why you're assuming that Faker is going to come up with some great technology like that. The folks at Razer who do this for a living can't. Like, I don't know if Faker is necessarily this great mouse designer that no one else on the planet can design great mice.
Ramsey brings up a great point. Air Jordans, right? To me, there's this key difference. It doesn't parallel with traditional sports, right? You take Air Jordans. Air Jordans are the best probably basketball performance shoe, right? That professionals wear or have versions of, right? But it's also repped by cultural influencers also, right? They're one and the same product, repped by two different groups. There's no distinction between influencer and pro. This distinction between pro and influencer seems to exist much more distinctly in the esports world. I don't know if I made sense there, but you don't get in traditional sports.
Pros, I think the really good pros in traditional sports are also influencers.
Yes.
So it's LeBron, it's he's an influencer, but he's also the best basketball player on the planet. So is that the dichotomy of what?
Yeah, whereas in esports and gaming, you can have people who are horrible at the game with massive influence, and people who are amazing at the game with much less influence.
But would you say Courage is horrible at these games?
I mean,
he's that bad.
He's not good at the games.
Than, the average person, though.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'd put him anywhere above the average. He probably falls somewhere in line with the average, especially if you compare it to the average of people who play games 8 hours a day, right? You put it in some context also. He should be performing at a higher level given the amount of hours in the game.
I will say that when I start a new game, one of the first things I do is look at the key bindings or the fine tuning that some of my favorite streamers that are also talented, use and play with. So for that reason, I do like the collaboration. Taylor's comment, honestly, is kind of wraps it up, I think, pretty nicely right on the head. If you want to read it, and then
it says, "I'll be completely honest. Either way, I think Razer makes out the best with this. Is there are hundreds of thousands of people watching Faker using Razer product, which gets those viewers dollars to the company." Yeah, I mean,
I would say
no question.
Even more so if there was a Yougov Insight that said, "Hey, most of Faker's audience is actually Logitech or Corsair or a Razer competitor." That now you're stealing. That Razer's stealing. That's the only way to actually honestly improve that partnership and deal.
Very true. Let's move on, guys, unless you have thoughts, Jeff.
I was just going to say, I guess when you're talking about marketing, you're talking about marketing a product based on it being the best. He would then have to only exclusively use it in the sense, and it would have to be noticeably making him better in order to make that sort of.
Does it have to make him better?
Just doesn't have to make him worse.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't ruin his game.
Better would be ideal. I'm with you on that.
All right, I think this is going to be our final story tonight, and it's a good one, I know, because Jimmy has direct ties here. It's an Xset story. Esports brand Xset partners with, is this Dre? Is that how it's pronounced?
Dre's nightclub.
Dre's nightclub for concerts and gaming cabanas. I just love this. Let me read some of the article here. It says, we view nightlife and gaming as cultural hubs that not only touch fashion, art, and entertainment, but are often at the forefront of what's next. I can hear Clinton Sparks saying this in my head. By the way, you guys should check out that episode with Clinton. It was an amazing podcast episode. But I'll just read what's visible here. It says, would you play video games at the club? Popular Las Vegas hip-hop nightclub Dre's and esports and gaming lifestyle brand Xset are banking on it. The two companies have signed a first-of-its-kind partnership to integrate gaming and music activation into the Dre's party scene, where artists like Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, and 2 Chainz are regular performers. Beginning in early fall, Xset's so-called residency will produce Xset-themed gaming cabanas hooked up with branded consoles inside Dre's 30,000 square foot beach club, as well as gaming VIP sections and a private gaming lounge for performers in its 25,000 square foot nightclub. I mean, Xset's also bringing their talent. It goes on to talk about that. What do you guys think of this? I think it's really interesting. It's different. It's the first I've seen of this, right? Nightlife and gaming sort of meeting in this sort of clear way.
Do you want me to go first or last?
Well, like, where are we on the spectrum, right? Because to me,
are you an investor here, Jimmy? What's your disclosure?
Disclaimer.
I am an Xset investor. I'll just go first. The amount of hype that this announcement got this week, reposts and retweets and other people chiming in and sharing it, was like as big as when Azuna was signed, as big as when Zeke Elliott was signed, as big as any Xset announcement over the last year. It was just like massively popular. It was just so well received that tremendous props and shout out to Clinton for making this happen over there. Again, like Paul said, listen to his episode, just kind of dissecting, I think, popular culture and putting gaming at the nexus instead of music. As far as whether or not this will be successful, I definitely want to hear you guys' take on it after beating to death the Tim Horton kind of activation. Not quite the same, right? Because this isn't about getting people in and out the door. You go to the nightclub for an extended period of time. It is kind of ironic when you introduce antisocial behavior into something that's really a in-person experience. But to Paul's point, or I don't know if you made this point, excuse me, but like, it's really cool. It's something that hasn't been done before. It's something to talk about. All of the artists and performers are all big gamers, right? So they want gaming in the green room or backstage. When I'm at the club, the first thing I want to do is leave and go home and play. So, maybe this is a reason to get me out. I'm like, my fiance wants to go dance and I'm going to go over here and,
So this is just like the Tim Hortons, basically. Mom wants to go. Mom wants to go have coffee. I just want to play games.
I think for Tim Hortons, I think for Dre's, it's Dre's is entering the space in a unique way, and Dre's is affiliating themselves with a tier 1 org that has a lot of star power, like Sway Lee, that now is going to start performing regularly at the venue. And I think for Xset, that wants to be more than a hoodie org, right? That has awesome Valorant and Counter-Strike and Rocket League teams, but that wants to be a lifestyle brand as much as anything. And I think is doing it in a unique way where they're not just relying on collaborative merch drops. I'm only going to have good things to say about this, guys, because this is my horse in the race. I think it's innovative and exciting. Whether or not it's a good business decision, please rip it to shreds if you believe so. Don't pull punches. But I don't think you can deny that it's really cool to just talk about in theory. That's my take. William's face is like, no.
William looks like he's about to throw up or something. No, I mean, one, I thought the Clinton Sparks episode was awesome, and he has such an impressive background, and is just like a guy when you hear him, you're like, wow, everything this guy touches to gold, turns to gold.
He's the coolest guy in gaming. There's no question.
I would not bet against it. Having said that, if this idea was pitched to me and I didn't know that he was involved and I didn't know that you were an investor, I would not be super bullish on, only because I despise nightclubs. So when I think of nightclubs, I think of a dark, really loud room that I want to leave immediately. And to me, that like a concert / nightclub doesn't necessarily mix with like what I think of as like people wanting to sit and play video games. But I think that I'm just not understanding what exactly. I think it's going to be different from what I'm picturing, which is basically my own personal hell. But that has nothing to do with what actually the idea is. And I think with Clinton and the team that they like, it's going to be successful. That's just my own demons of gaming clubs.
Do we not love a world where there's this potential to pick up girls in a club based on your Valorant rank?
That would have helped me.
William.
Let William, because I talk too much. Go for it.
No, I mean, no, not a huge comment here. I mean, I reserve my judgment on this. I think what I like about it a lot is the PR. I think to the credit of this announcement, I think it's really unique. I think it hasn't, like, there's not other nightclubs signing, this. And I think it is, I think it's a very good driver of sort of eyeballs. And I think does a good job of continuing to position XSET in the kind of music space, which I think is something that's clearly very, strongly of interest to that organization. I mean, beyond that, I'll withhold my full comments. But yeah, I think I don't think it's a bad move, bluntly.
I'm curious how you guys compare, because after having seen the HyperX Arena, to me, there's interesting parallels here, right? Which is that HyperX Arena was a nightclub. So it was a nightclub inside the Luxor that they've converted to this essentially gaming space, right? No different than the way they're describing these gaming cabanas. And they serve alcohol there, and they can then play music there, and there's a DJ booth there, and you can get a club atmosphere inside the HyperX Arena.
Yeah.
Do we not see sort of this convergence happening? Like, they don't feel that different to me if this is executed the way it's described.
Well,
again, it lies in the execution. Sorry, Jeff, go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a lot of these things. That's always probably a good thing to preface. I was going to say, I mean, one of the things Clinton, I think, has proven is he is someone who is able to make things cool. And he's at the forefront of this gaming culture, hip hop, frankly, making things cool that, I joked in our private chat, I'm literally not cool enough to judge whether this is going to work or not. And I kind of do. I don't even say that facetiously. Like, I think that it will, what I'm most interested in to see is whether this is going to be more club or more gaming, and where it falls in that spectrum. Because, I think there's a way you do it where it's like the gaming is somewhat secondary, but it's like gaming themed entertainment. So you attract the gaming audience, but they're not necessarily coming to plug in and like game or play in a tournament. It's just like sort of like gaming culture. But yeah, I think it's
I can see the attraction though, because I do this, right? Like, I will go to a place that's more not clubbish, but like,
you might be the only person who does this though, Paul.
Like, I will go to a public place that's not meant for gaming, where people are partying or drinking or outside or whatever, and I will bring my gaming laptop and I will put my headphones on and I'll play outside. And I find it fascinating because people come by and want to ask questions and want to know what I'm doing, and I think you will get some of that. Like, I actually think there will be social interaction around these gaming cabanas that happen between groups of people you may not think would, right? Like, that'd be cool. Yeah. You may get groups who are there who are hardcore, just Lil Wayne fans and are there for the club and the dancing and the alcohol, who get sort of hooked into a party of other people who are there to play, COD all night long. And I think interesting things can happen there. And I don't see a huge difference between this and the HyperX space. Frankly, I think we're describing them differently, but it's fundamentally achieving the same goal, which is how can you make gaming a little bit more social, a little bit more public, a little bit more extroverted.
The real question I think we should all be asking is, when does it open? And what do I do? You know, Jimmy, where's my cabana? Like, what do we do?
Where's our VIP?
VIP access. I think when you innovate like this, a lot of it is just in the idea and kind of trying something new to make that wave, and in whether or not it sticks, right? We look at things from a business perspective on this show. Sometimes, the cultural phenomenon that you can unleash with that idea, even if it's a failure, becomes bigger, I think, than the underlying idea. Like Paul was saying about meshing certain fun cultural music events with gaming, whether or not this works, it's in the talks. I can say 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, when I first met Clinton, we were trying to put FaZe Clan stuff like this at Astronomical, a Travis Scott concert. And Clinton and I were all about it, but we couldn't get, people upstairs to agree on the details. So what happened? We took Travis to Epic and did that concert instead. But that would have been the first of its kind, very similar to this, which is loud music venue. Maybe there are people that want to meet in games separately. Maybe there's something that we could do for them and support that community or do it in a cool way. I can share with you in the green rooms, all the stars are playing Madden or 2K or some type of game backstage. I've had the fortune of being in a ton of them in my life, just from being in music a little bit before this, and they're all gaming backstage. So I think it's just a no-brainer that they wanted to, or that people would be down to include it in this sense. And then as a fan of this concept and someone that would use it, I remember in college, I used to work security for my fraternity, and one day the guy in charge, our pledge master, let us off early. He goes, "You guys can go inside the party and enjoy." And I looked at my roommate and my pledge brother Mike, and he and I walked through the front door, through the party room, through the back door, all the way back to our dorms, and hopped on World of Warcraft. This is 2006, so this is like prime World of Warcraft, and like we just left this college fraternity party in our prime to go play WoW. So
I can tell you, there is a future. Like, a lot of guys go to clubs to pick up girls. That's one of the reasons you go, or to meet girls or whatever. I can tell you there is a future where being radiant in Valorant is something that girls find attractive, right? Like the gamer culture is becoming more mainstream than we realize, and this becomes a legitimate
I wish Lindsay was here for this one so she could say yes or no. We need some sort of female backup proof on this.
No,
we just like we're equipped to. I'm not sure if that might just be what we're hoping or what.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I hold out hope.
Hope is a good thing.
Taylor says, "I always say this: Las Vegas is slowly but surely becoming the esports hub of the world. This is just another step to this. Las Vegas definitely has a lot of the pieces necessary, and gambling being such a great way to monetize makes a lot of sense."
So impressed by Vegas's esports scene when we were there. Really.
Ramsey says, "Not sure about this working. Definitely interesting in breaking the basement gamer stereotype." Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see. Exet times Dre's, very similar to FaZe times Resorts World. These high value clubs really want to combine on multiple levels with these teams. They want the audience, young, disposable income. It definitely makes sense to try and reach that audience. Ramsey says, "Maybe more Fall Guys than Valorant, and I could get on board with the club gaming convergence." There you go. True. That's probably a better one. You may need better noise canceling headphones for Valorant in a club, but all right. That I think we covered that, guys. I don't have anything else for this week. I don't know if you want to do, what are we playing this week?
Oh yeah, let's do it. I played something.
What'd you play, Jeff?
I played Madden. I downloaded the new Madden. I played it. It's pretty much exactly the same as the old Madden. But it was fun. I played like 3 games online. And I'll probably play more this weekend.
Nice.
Me. I played Valorant. Yes. I played Valorant. That's amazing, Jeff, that you played a game. That's amazing. I played Valorant and I deranked because I'm apparently getting worse. But really enjoying me some Valorant.
Jimmy?
So Taylor, who's been super active in the chat today, knows that when we were at the Razer store, I got Paul to invest in mobile esports, and he got me a Razer Kishi handheld controller
Oh
for
no,
my
you've been
iPhone.
playing it.
I played Call of Duty Mobile on my Razer Kishi. I got 12 kills in first place in my first game of Battle Royale on Warzone Mobile. It was awesome.
So it's a
I was
hack.
just, like,
It's basically cheating.
I was so good compared to everyone else.
Time to go pro in COD Mobile. Oh man!
Totally
And
worth
Taylor's
it.
playing
Everyone
Destiny, new season of Destiny. I've heard good things.
I grinded Destiny so hard back in the day. I love that game.
Ramsey playing Burning Crusade still. Ramsey, this is it? Are you not fed up already? Are you still enjoying it? I'm curious what everyone else is playing. Anyone back on Apex? I got asked on the podcast.
I'll
After the
probably play Apex
podcast.
tomorrow. I'll probably check it out tomorrow. I will say Destiny is probably the best FPS I've ever played. I love that game.
Destiny,
so hard.
the best
Destiny
FPS you've
is
ever played.
So good.
Whoa,
It is
that's
so good.
That's like that.
It's the original.
Best
it's
FPS
Bungie.
ever?
It's Bungie. It is so good. Have you played?
Yes, but I would not put it best FPS ever.
I love Destiny.
Come
Played
on.
it every day for probably 4 years.
Quake 3 is the best FPS ever. Let's face it. Maybe CS:GO. Taylor says, "Glad you like it, sir." Christian says, "Go Jeff. The next big step will be Jeff playing a game outside of Madden, like convincing Paul about mobile esports." Christian, I did my part. I bought something for Jimmy to play mobile esports for me. So there you go. It's like I'm playing mobile esports.
Formula One has a game, we can all check out.
You can't see it, but here is my racing sim, where I do play some F1 occasionally. But it makes me having the racing sim makes me a snob about playing it on anything else, unless you have a proper direct drive wheel and good pedals and the whole bit. Ramsey says, "Just my favorite game of all time, so I won't close the book until the whole building burns down with it." Oh man. Ramsey, I'm curious, will you go to New World when it comes out? And is anyone playing the New World, the second beta, the open beta that they're doing? So this beta, you don't need to buy the game. I think it's this weekend. I think. Ramsey says, "Just realized there was no Activision bashing today. Must be a record." It is a record. Congrats. We did it, guys. we managed.
We've gone one day.
One day.
Workplace
someone keep a counter.
We spent enough time bashing YouTube gaming today. I think that was our punching bag for the day was YouTube gaming.
Oh man. All right, guys. That Ramsey says, "Nope, I don't actually have time to play MMOs, but TBC is special." What? TBC is an MMO. What do you mean? Will you quit TBC for New World? Ramsey is the question. And I'm curious how many people are going to play the New World open beta, because I think this weekend's going to be very telling in terms of how big that game's going to be. Jeff, this is something for you to watch, because
should I watch you?
You don't have to. You don't have to pre-order. Yeah, you don't have to pre-order, right? So anyone can go play it, can go try it. I think they will break major records in terms of the amount of concurrent players for a game that's not even out yet. We'll see. All right, guys, that wraps up this week's live stream. As always, don't forget, we do this every Wednesday evening, 8:30 Eastern time. We thank you all for coming. Ramsey, Taylor, Christian, Wade, John, all of you guys, Robert, everyone who's still around, who stuck it out to the end, Christopher, all you guys, really appreciate you guys coming, participating. Tell your friends about the live stream. It's so much more fun doing this with you guys. Stay tuned for tomorrow's podcast. Go check out businessofesports.shop, guys. It's a good way to support us, other than reaching out to Yougov, which you should do. But buying some Business of Esports merch is a lot of fun. We appreciate all of you, and we will see you next week.